Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It is a pre-record that we are incredibly honored and humbled to bring to you today. I think it's not an overstatement to say that this is by far our largest guest. And so we need to thank Jenny Olson, who's a new friend of mine, for bringing this to us. But we are about to welcome First Lady of North Dakota, Kathryn Burgum, to our little program to talk about her journey with addiction and also her program Recovery Reinvented. So we will bring her to the stage right now because she's the reason that we're here today. First Lady Kathryn Burgum, welcome to Daily Dose.
Welcome. Thank you.
Hi, and thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be with you today.
We're really thrilled to have you as well. We knew of your work, obviously, because you have been very open since becoming First Lady. We've watched a number of your other interviews and we forget sometimes that First Ladies don't have easy paths because there's not an obvious role for you, but that also enables you to then pick something that you're very, very passionate about and really have a platform that's unlike almost anybody else in the nation, except 49 others of you who get to do this kind of work. So, Kathryn, would you talk a little bit about just that moment where you realized that you were going to have this opportunity and how you settled on deciding that eliminating shame and stigma around the disease of alcoholism and addiction was the platform you wanted to adopt?
Yes, well, when I became First Lady, that this new volunteer job I have, which I've had for a while now, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity. I sort of was like, okay, what am I gonna, what's gonna be my platform? What are gonna be my causes? And I had not really talked about my own recovery journey. I mean, my friends and family knew. But I had a lot of friends who had no idea, that I'd known for 10 years, who had no idea that I was in recovery because I just never talked about it. Mm-hmm. So, and, in that particular point in time in 2016, 17, the opioid crisis was just out of control. It still is, by the way, but, it was a big topic then. So I just decided I was asked to do an interview at the newspaper, and 5 minutes before the interview, I told my husband I was going to talk about my recovery. He was like, "What? What? That's kind of a big deal. Like, maybe we should have talked about that a little sooner, But he's super supportive, and he was that day. And another part of the reason I decided, it was very personal to me, recovery, and but another reason I decided to talk about it was, part of the reason I didn't talk about it for so long was because of this shame and stigma surrounding it. Part of the reason I didn't get help for my disease for so long was because of the shame and stigma. So I had heard someone speak before we got into office. His name's William Moyers. He's very connected to Hazel and Betty Ford. And he said, there is a very simple way. I get emotional just thinking about it. It's like there's a very simple way to eliminate the shame and stigma of the disease of addiction, and that's just to talk about it. Talk about how it's affected you, talk about your own journey, talk about people talk about it like any other disease we would talk about. So that was very inspiring to me. Also I was like, oh, okay, to have the courage to do that. And then when I talked about it during my interview and walked through that door, it was like 100-pound weight had been lifted off my shoulders for sure. I didn't really realize that, but I didn't really realize how much that could be holding me back in my life. But the other thing I thought about was, if I could just, I don't know why I'm so emotional today, but if I could just help one person, because telling my story, if I could help one person, that it'll be totally worth it. Help people to, help other people and, help people not go through the horrible journey, that I had and so many other people have. So that is, that's basically how I decided that this would be my platform. And it has just been an amazing journey, a super, inspirational, emotional, powerful journey. And I just continue every day to be grateful. really for the opportunity.
Yeah. I wonder, did you feel that way when we went public? Did you feel like a weight was sort of set off your shoulders?
I think so. And I had no problem telling people I was a recovering alcoholic anyway, but it did fill a void because we started this during the height of the pandemic, and I couldn't go to an AA meeting. So I was getting the same, if not more, out of us doing these weekly, these daily little episodes.
Yeah.
Because I could still talk about it. And then, we started getting all the guests on. So talking to them was incredibly helpful.
Yeah, it's been so humbling, and I'm sure that you would say this too. One of the gifts of deciding to be public is that you can then be in community with other people who are inspired to then come public, and you can learn about the commonalities and the differences and the unique qualities and the shared qualities. And that's been so illuminating for me because I didn't have any experience with alcohol growing up. And so to have this thing which lived really largely between the two of us in a very small circle of people, I didn't really know anybody else who could say, well, my husband's in recovery too. And so to have that network now, I just feel like in such a strange way, it's been such a gift. I certainly don't wish it for other people, but I do wish the freeingness of stepping away from it and not feeling like you have to hang your head or that you're a broken person or that there's something wrong with your relationship because you've survived this very, very hard disease.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is to be able to talk about it, to be able to connect with other people, that's just a hugely important thing. And, you mentioned the pandemic, and I am just so grateful for technology because during the pandemic, there were a lot of recovery resources available online. There's many different paths to recovery, but the pandemic really opened up that opportunity for people to reach out any time of the day and find a resource available. And so that was one of the silver linings, I think, is that, we realize that you don't always have to be in person. I also believe that it made some of those opportunities make it a lot easier for people who are struggling to reach out for help because you can kind of do it anonymously. It's hard when you got to go face to face to people and admit, and that sort of thing. But when you can kind of do it anonymously just through resources online, I think that helped a lot of people as well during the pandemic.
I think it did because the Friday night meeting I go to was actually at Prairie St. John Recovery Center in Fargo, where I went. But when that closed down, they set up a Zoom meeting. But we all started to, when we were on Zoom meetings, we got to know each other's last names, so we were no longer anonymous. We became friends on Facebook, and we instant messaged each other way more than we would have done just going to an AA meeting. And there were people joining us on a Friday night who were just actually doing the tour. Some people in Idaho and Oklahoma and things like that. We're doing a tour of different AA meetings in the upper Midwest. And they got the Zoom address. They came on and introduced themselves. And it was just really interesting to meet so many more people and to listen to their stories too.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I find really interesting is obviously you inherited now a very political life because of the nature of Governor Burgum's role. And what I think is really telling about the work that you are doing and the way that you're doing it in particular is I have never, since you became First Lady of North Dakota, I've never heard one single person speak negatively about this work. And it would be the kind of thing where if you were doing it from a place that didn't feel sincere or didn't feel like your intention was really honest to be a force for good for all North Dakotans and beyond, it would be an easy way to sort of sling some political mud your direction and Governor Burgum's direction, because we're quite comfortable shaming people who live with addiction often. And the fact that I've heard nothing but praise for the work that you're doing and recognition of the intentionality behind it, I think is really, really speaks highly of you as a human being, of you as a first lady, and of the work that you're doing, the steps that you've put in place, and in particular, this annual conference, Recovery Reinvented. So what can you tell us about how that came about? Because that can't have been an easy undertaking so quickly into your tenure as First Lady to say, let's do a statewide conference that has national significance.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I just want to say that, I'm grateful to have such an amazing partner in my husband. He really calls himself an elected leader. I mean, we really try to look at this as an opportunity to help people and try to stay out of the politics, I mean, it's an interesting, journey. And so that's that. But when like literally we were doing our grad inauguration events, we had a few different events. We met with all the tribes. We had kind of like a service breakfast where people could just gather in the morning. But through those events, just days after we became, in office, everybody was saying, we've got to do something. We've got to help people. We've got to whatever. And so we are so lucky in our state because we have the most incredible behavioral health team. I mean, they are literally so innovative. Other states want to copy what we're doing. They're on the forefront. There's just always something they're doing to really reach out and help everybody. And so I met with Pam Sagnis, who's the director of behavioral health, and I met with William Moyers because I respect his opinion, and I just said, hey, what should we do? What's and then we talked about it, and we just said, we can help the most people, reach the most people by having a conference. And that's really how it came about. But we knew that the conference, well, I knew, and William and Pam agreed too, that, it really needed to be about eliminating stigma, because once we eliminate that stigma, we can open the doors to so many things. There's stigma in the medical systems and communities and hospitals, like, why does this disease have to be in a separate location, in a separate building, and, in a separate block? Why is it not part of a hospital system? Why are these, eliminating the stigma would open the doors in a lot of areas. So we knew it needed to be about stigma. And over the years, it has, this will be our 5th annual. It's the 5th time we're doing this, which is, I'm so excited about it, that we're doing Recovery Reinvented is the official name of the conference. And, we are now talking, very significantly about the intersection of mental health and addiction. And for me, it was difficult to even talk about my mental health. Like, it was more difficult for me to talk about my mental health issues and struggles than it was about my addiction. It's crazy because, again, the stigma, So anyway, we are so excited to have the 5th annual conference this year. We do, as you mentioned, get to play on a national field with this conference because we have people at a national level making a difference in so many areas that come to speak at the conference, or as last year they spoke, online. But, last year we had 5,000 people from all over the world at various points of time, joining us. So it's a great day. I got a lot to say about that. I'll stop right here to see if you have any other questions before I dive into more about this year's Recovery Reinvented.
Well, all I really want to say, we were able to tune into a bit of last year. I'm coming to this year's. Maz has to teach, unfortunately, but I will be there. I can't wait. It will be my first one in person. But in 2018 or 19, we were at the Arts Partnership was at the Main Street Summit, and the Surgeon General Jerome Adams was there. And I believe Recovery Reinvented was the week after that, maybe. And I knew that you had been connected to him, and his story was so powerful because, I mean, for heaven's sakes, he's a highly decorated veteran, and he's a surgeon and now has this national position as Surgeon General, and grew up in Indiana, and yet had a brother serving time in jail from the same household, same sets of parents, same opportunities. And I will never forget him saying that his brother, I think, smoked pot for the first time in high school, and him saying, we knew from almost the moment drugs entered my brother's system that it would be a lifelong battle for him. And I just remember thinking, wow, I'm sitting in Bismarck, North Dakota with the Surgeon General of the United States talking about this really vulnerable thing, celebrating his own success, looking at the challenges that his family has faced, and then really trying to say, so that's where I'm coming from, and that's why it matters to me. What do we need to do to end this? And I remember thinking that you were the reason that he was here. And that's such a, it's just such an amazing thing to realize that one person can open doors, can help to change systems, can create a program. Who knows whose life was saved that day? Because I didn't need my life to be saved, but I've never forgotten it.
Yeah.
So what can you tell us about this year's conference, aside from the fact that tickets are free? All you have to do is get yourself to Bismarck. The link is at the bottom of the screen. If you're coming from Fargo and want to drive with me, I'm driving that morning and driving home that afternoon. So I got room for 3 in my car. So Kathryn, what can you tell us about the conference?
Well, you just want to make a comment about the Surgeon General. One of the things that happened after I told my story was I started getting invited to all these national events, because of the opioid situation. I was at the White House many times. The drug czar, involved me in a lot of decisions related to, some of the marketing they were trying to do. As you mentioned, Dr. Jerome, he was in North Dakota. He was also, I'm on the board of Hazel and Betty Ford, so I was able to introduce them to him, and he came to Hazel and Betty Ford, and then the head of the CDC, Robert Redfield at the time, has a son that was struggling with addiction, so I was able to, to meet with them. So and a lot of those relationships were where I met other people that ended up speaking at Recovery Reinvented. So, that's how this works. You meet those people that have, because literally I sort of believe there's hardly anyone that is not affected by the disease of addiction in some way. There just is hardly anyone. So,
yep.
So we are, now more than ever, we believe, especially because of the pandemic, Recovery Reinvented is just so important. And so you are right. Let's just get to the basics, which is it's October 25th. It's from, I think, 9:30 to 5. And it is free. You can come in person or you can watch online. And Maz, you said you've got to work, but just put it on your computer on mute.
I will.
Yeah.
Make sure
you can just watch it all day long if you want, just have it in the background. But but you need to register so that you can tell us if you're going to be there in person, so we can have lunch, or if you're going to be online, we just make sure we have the bandwidth, and all that. So that's great. It's the same format as we've had in previous years. We wanted to be kind of like a TEDx kind of day because, little shorter conversations, but yet experts providing incredible information. This year, we're going to have stories, North Dakotans telling their stories, their recovery journey stories, or how they've been affected by the disease of addiction in person. Most of them are in person, and little short stories throughout the day. That we have these incredibly amazing speakers, like we always do, that are speaking from the main stage. We've got Dr. Joe Lee, who's the new CEO and president of Hazel and Betty Ford, who is, his background has been more adolescent struggles, between mental health and addiction. He has a lot of really good experience and important experience on the mental health side, which is, I think, very important because for so many people, this starts because of mental health issues. I would say it did for me. That's why I went down this path, because of my own struggles. So he's amazing. We also have Dr. Valerie Earnshaw coming to speak. And one of the most unique things about this conference is that we are going to be revealing the results of a stigma survey that we did in our state. I mean, it's not just stigma, but it will answer we'll try to answer that question, like how much stigma do we have in our state? Dr. Valerie is an expert in this field and an expert on doing these kinds of surveys. And this could get us, really national attention, because this is legit, like this isn't just like, oh, we're going to give you a survey monkey and, fill it out. And if we get 40 people, we'll be happy. We had like 2,200 people there. She was like shocked. She was like, I'm like, way to go, North Dakota.
We're
Like they
participants in our state. We show up. Yeah.
I know, right? She's like, I've never had this many people. So she's going to talk about that, which is her focus as a researcher, and is on eliminating the stigma of the disease of addiction, which is and all stigma. So that's going to be awesome. And then we have and a really amazing guy. You guys may have heard of him. His name is Jonathan Holt. He was a
guest on the show with us. Yeah,
okay,
he's fabulous.
Yes, he is.
That's so fabulous.
That's right. He's going to be speaking about his own recovery. He's going to talk about, building recovery support at work. That's one of the themes that we're going to focus on, in addition to eliminating stigma, building recovery support in the workplace. And then we've got Lori Johnson Wade, who is she's been in recovery herself for a long time. She is on the board of Faces and Voices of Recovery. She has focused a lot on building recovery community organizations and focusing on how do we do this in the community. And so she's got a lot of great things to say too. So, so we've got great speakers. Then we're going to weave in some art and music like we've always done as well. And then we do have, recovery champions. We give out awards every year for people that are, really going above and beyond to make a difference in our communities across our state. So when you register, when you go to recoveryreinvented.com, you can make nominations for award winners. You can also volunteer. We always need volunteers. You can volunteer at the event. There's probably other online volunteer opportunities. So that's really important as well. And so and the governor and I love to do this, but we host the event all day long. And, I mentioned early on that he is like a really supportive partner, but one of his pillars as governor is to focus on behavioral health, to focus on addiction, substance use, and mental health. So this is a high priority for him. And so that's why we love to do it together. And, we're both passionate about it. And it's just a really fun day for us. And the people that come to this event are a wide variety of people. It's people that are, very connected and closely connected to the disease of addiction or behavioral health, mental health, or they're law enforcement or education. They're, they come from, native, very different groups of people too. We've got Native Americans coming to the event or online. We've got, nonprofits. There's just a wide variety of people, healthcare, that come to the event. So anyway, it's going to be fantastic. We're super excited to be able to do it again this year. And we already have, I think, almost 1,200 people registered. So
that's great.
Fantastic.
That's great. So how do you feel like being so public has changed the way you think about your own recovery? Because you were in recovery for a long time before you came forward, had this massive platform. How do you think about it now as opposed to maybe 10 years ago?
Well, how I think about it now is that I just continue to be so grateful because so many people reach out to me. I'm able to help people one-on-one. They reach out to me through social media. I now know way more about the resources we have available in our state through our behavioral health, or the treatment centers and, the online help. I think, my recovery journey is now being able to really connect people directly to resources. There's so many parents, so many, aunties and uncles. There's just so many people that struggle. And so to be able to actually, to do that sort of work is amazing. And I just don't have the shame and stigma I did. I think that was just a big part of why I didn't really talk about it, and then, everybody I help, helps me stay sober. Every person I help, and so for me, that's really important for my own recovery. And then, to be asked to do things, asked to speak at various, I did a TEDx talk. That was the first talk I really did, and I was terrified, because I'm kind of more of an introvert. Don't really like to, do the big things and whatever. And then now to be able to get asked to be part of what people are trying to do at various states or on the national level, that's a big part of my recovery too, because doing that work helps me stay sober. So, I just, and then I also was asked to be on the board of Hazel and Betty Ford. And, for someone like me in recovery, that's like nirvana, that's the holy grail, Hazel and Betty Ford.
Yeah.
And so that work, and how close I am to the work that they're doing and to be a part of that, that board of amazing people is, all of that just helps me in my own recovery and just helps me remember, I'm, just like everybody else who struggles with this. I'm one drink away from losing everything I have. So this work is really important to me because that is, I used to tell people when I get emotional, I'm like, I used to cry over, I was a victim of everything. It was everybody else's fault. And, I'll cry about the, all the craziness in my life. And now I just, whenever these tears show up, it's all about gratitude, So, I didn't have gratitude before I found recovery. I didn't really understand gratitude. So anyway, I guess I would say that's really how all of this has impacted my own recovery. And then I get to meet amazing people like you, the work that you are doing on eliminating the shame and stigma, and, Maz, being open about your own recovery. That is all just, it's people like you that are helping to save lives. I tell people that too, because I still I still have people reach out to me and say, the work you're doing is so great. Thank you so much. And I'll be like, oh, awesome. Let's tell your story. Let's, can you come to this? Can you do whatever? And they're like, well, I just need to keep that on the down low. I'm not really, and I'm like, oh, and I get it. They're worried about their job. They're worried about whatever, and so, there's still people, but the work that you're doing, the work that all the people, it's not just me doing this work. There's just a whole army load of people now, a part of this Recovery Reinvented movement. So, I am super grateful. But again, thank you so much for the work that you're doing through your podcast. It's awesome.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you.
That's nice of you.
That's very kind of you. I often joke that one of the great perks to living in North Dakota is that you're 1 or maybe 2 degrees of separation from the most important person in the state. And I feel pretty confident that this has proven that. So if you say it often enough, it does happen. Yeah. Kathryn, we won't keep you any longer because we know you have other things to get on with and planning to do for the conference. But thank you so much for.
It was lovely to meet you.
Yeah, not just your time today, but for this work as a spouse of someone who, I never believed he would get sober. And so that is such a devastating place to be, and to be on this side of it, to know that as a state, we've made it a priority and that it's your personal passion. I just think about all of the spouses and children and parents who don't have to live the way that I lived for a really long time. So thank you for doing this work.
Absolutely. And, Maz, his story is another story of hope. Really, there is always hope for recovery. So just don't give up.
And the more people that welcome it, the easier it is to just be honest and say that, I am an alcoholic enjoying sobriety. And it's kind of a proud thing. I'm proud of it now.
Yeah. No, it's great. Well, thank you again. I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you today.
Thank you. And I'll see you on the 25th. Ladies and gentlemen, First Lady of North Dakota, Kathryn Burgum.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kathryn. We'll see you soon.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Everyone else, we'll see you next week.
Bye.